Recorded live from the secret underground lair of Crimson Cowl Comics and Collectibles, this is the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast.
The following issues may contain spoilers. Pizza just hits different after swan diving off the Eiffel Tower. You know what I mean? I'm Anthony.
I'm Kirby.
I'm Katie.
I'm Eric.
Welcome to issue number 256 of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast. Each and every week, we meet here to talk about comic books. We don't have any club discussions this week. We don't have any creator spotlights like the awesome Troy Dungara episode that we had last week. Check that out on YouTube. But we do have some upcoming club discussions, further issues of The Punisher, Berserker, Slowpokes 2, which my copy should be shipping very shortly, Buffy the Last Vampire Slayer Special number 1, It's Jeff number 1, and Once Upon a Time at the End of the World number 4. So look forward to those club discussions in the future episodes of this podcast. This week we will do some weekly reviews. That's where we go back and forth, talk about the books that we've been reading, whether they're new, whether they're old. We're going to talk about them there. And then we have a news segment in which we're going to do the Milwaukee Mighty Con Winter Recap 2023. We were going to schedule that as a separate bonus episode, but we are going to wrap it in to this episode right here for scheduling purposes. So that is the lineup of what we are doing here at the show. And I'm going to kick it off here with the weekly reviews with something that I got Kickstarter rewards a while back, but I finally had time to crack it open. I am talking about this awesome art book for Bernie Wrightson, The FPG Years. It's been almost 30 years since Bernie Wrightson let his imagination run wild on his 2 trading card series. For this once-in-a-lifetime creative endeavor, Bernie was given free rein to explore whatever ideas he wanted. Over a 2-year period, he created 150 new paintings, vivid images of swamp creatures, vampires, werewolves, and beasties of all types congregate throughout these works. It's a spellbinding collection of all the things which Bernie is best known. These paintings have never been assembled in book form. They have never been seen at close to the actual size as what they were produced. All of the paintings have been lovingly photographed on museum quality transparencies that were made when Bernie first completed the artwork in 93 and 94. So they will appear fresh as they were the day he sent them to the FPG offices. I myself am a huge fan of Bernie Wrightson. He is the co-creator of Swamp Thing. He is the illustrator for the Frankenstein, the Mary Shelley Frankenstein books. And he's just overall just one of the go-to inspirations when it comes to your 70s, 80s, 90s creature drawings, from all the different creatures of your swamp creatures, your vampires, your werewolves, and your cemeteries. I'm going to show off some examples here, but they did a bunch of trading card sets in the early to mid 90s. And while they were only done on trading cards up until then, there was a Kickstarter to fund this collection, bringing them to a bigger size presentation wise. So I'm going to show off a couple of these as I kind of talk about how awesome this book was. They showed a lot of, they had some interviews that he basically had when he was interviewed for through Diamond or through previews and things like that back then, talking about his favorite things, his inspirations, what he thinks about the comic industry and things like that. Unfortunately, he had passed a couple years ago, not too far long after Len Wein and both of the creators of Swamp Thing. And but yeah, so it's awesome collection here because you get a lot of commentary on all the drawings that he does too. Here's a gorgeous look at what kind of cemetery work he does here. That just he just basically kind of set the standard for how the stuff is drawn, and just the styles and the tone. And what was cool about these trading card series, as he talks about in the commentary and the interviews, is that he was basically given the free rein to do whatever he wanted. There wasn't a theme. He would do his creatures and kind of create his own themes within there, but he took each painting and just went through and just did whatever came to mind. He worked in different kind of mediums depending on what the subject matter was going to be, but he had no, as far as I know, no editorial, no feedback or no criticism. It was simply, hey, you're Bernie Wrightson, we hired you to do this, just go wild. Here's one of my favorite ones here. Just this, he talks about a story about walking through the woods or the trees and just seeing how he would say it. Actually, it's going to say it right here. He goes, I live in the country with the woods right in my backyard. I like to take walks and look at my favorite trees, but sometimes I could almost swear that they're not quite in the same spot as the day before. So yeah, that what kind of inspired his this tree just basically rooting out of the ground and turned into this big, creature. But yeah, this is just a gorgeous collection. The cover, both the dust jacket and the actual hardcover, is decorated with a very Swamp Thing inspired drawing. I think legally it might be one of those things that maybe it can't actually be Swamp Thing based on what he was making the cards for, but he actually called this one Familiar Face, and that's what he refers to for this this card painting here is Familiar Face, because yeah, definitely it's pretty much, I think, is legally that it can be Swamp Thing. So yeah, there's a couple good examples. He does a couple different swamp creatures. These card sets are actually fairly affordable. You can get them on eBay. I've actually got a couple offers on some sets that I'm looking through. Because yeah, I never had these. I never collected them at all. But after going through this book and realizing that they are obtainable without any crazy prices, I do want to jump in. And I'm going to show this one. It's my second to last one here, just to show off some just crazy creatures. This book is 200 pages, and it's offering everything from series 1 and 2 from the trading card set. And then here I get the last one to share that I want to. It is called C-Section, and the description is pass the aspirin. So there we go, C-Section, pass the aspirin. So yeah, that's just a small glimpse into what's in store for this awesome book. It was available through Kickstarter. I'm not sure if it's something that is available in the aftermarket. Obviously, if people sell their own, but I know there was an email not too long ago about them having maybe some copies that might have been slightly damaged or something. But so I don't know if they have an actual online store to do it. But this was an amazing collection. I was very happy to see all that put together. Yeah, that was just awesome. So for any Bernie Wrightson fan, this is just a gorgeous piece to look into. And it inspired me to go back a couple decades and get the cards I never had from 93 and 94. So that is the Bernie Wrightson art book for the FPG years. All right, jump over to Kirby. What you got for us?
I can't, the wife's not here at the moment, but we have the early Bernie Wrightson's books that have all those pictures in them and stuff. The only difference it looks is just the cover. But when there was a certain comic book shop in my garage, there were multiple sets of Bernie Wrightson's complete sets of trading cards in those fantasy cards packs I had for sale.
Really?
And I sold a box full of cards to someone, a box or two, but that last pile I gave to Kevin's Fond comic shop.
Oh, okay.
I can't think of the name. It starts with a V.
Vendetta.
But Vendetta. That load might have had a box full of cards up there. So if you happen to stop by, you might want to check. But I can't remember if those were art cards or Star Wars or what it was. So,
yeah, cool.
sadly, I think they might be gone. I still have a couple sets of my own in binders, but yeah, I always loved his artwork. So
yeah,
all right.
gorgeous stuff.
I am talking about Anno Dracula. For a dark decade, Dracula has ruled the British Empire unchecked. Now, on the verge of his tin jubilee, forces are gathering to challenge his insidious reign. In London, vampire journalist Kate Reed has been summoned to a meeting with the Council of the 7 Days, a secret cabal dedicated to destroying Dracula. Meanwhile, the sinister Lord of Strange Deaths is planning to use the Jubilee celebration for his own nefarious set of sedition. This collects issues 1 to 5 of Anno Dracula, 1895, 7 Days of Mayhem. It's written by Kim Newman and drawn by Paul McCaffrey. This was a really enjoyable vampire lore style story. The vampires in here, it's like the Council of Seven are 7 days of the week. There's one named Wednesday, one Thursday. Apparently one's a traitor, so they're trying to figure out who's the traitor in the midst. At the same time, they're trying to take down Dracula's clan, and Dracula's clan pretty much controls all the police and everything like that, which are all turned into some form of vampire type of character. There may be other demon type characters in there that I thought at the beginning, but then after reading some extra synopses and stuff, it looks like all the characters were vampires. Just different types. Some had magical powers, some had shape-shifting powers. But the thing I liked about it, they don't go off the old garlic's gonna harm you stuff, crosses are gonna harm you, silver will still kill you or do things to you and stuff, but they got away from some of those funky little lores that only worked with certain cultures and stuff. But we have a variety of characters in here, including some Asian characters that have some interesting abilities and backgrounds, and I don't feel like the one girl was a vampire at all. I think she just had her own martial arts abilities and stuff, and nothing like she's immortal or anything like that. We had a couple countesses that kind of run things. You see the torture and stuff between the clans, trying to get information and all that, trying to hunt down the 7 days of the week characters. And one character is not a vampire. He's like a 500-pound being that just kind of runs the council, and it's like you're always wondering what he is. Does tell you in the end. You find out things about all that stuff, but I don't want to ruin it. But apparently this series has a ton of different books after I read it, so I am going to have to look into it more and find out what order they are and all that, what the timeline is, because I would definitely like to read more of these. It was very enjoyable. This one has a foreword by Mike Mignola. They gave you all kinds of history in the beginning, getting you caught up on different things, and just, the artwork's beautiful in this book. There's a variety of different art styles. It flowed really nicely. A fun story, and plays on some of the characters from culture, like Sherlock Holmes and stuff like that. And it was a real interesting look at. I expected more of a Hellboy style feel to it, but Mike didn't have anything other than the forward to really do with this book, so that's what I was expecting when I started reading it. But it was a whole different layout and just really enjoyable for a new kind of, well, not new, older vampire story, but just a little different twist to it. So you even get, you got Dracula in here. They have this guy hanging out, which is basically played off Nosferatu, and he's just a silent vampire lurking in the dark corners, kind of watching everybody and stuff. But the main characters are three ladies that kind of run everything and control what's going on. And there's even a Catwoman style character in here that she just kind of helps out with things, but we never really get to know too much about her. But I liked it. So check it out, Anno Dracula.
Cool. All right, let's jump over to Katie. What's your first one here?
All right. Hello, everyone. This week I have a humor comic from 1999. It's by DC and it's called Fanboy. Picked this up at Jeffrey's Comics in Santa Monica. They had some awesome back issue bins. It is by Mark Evanier, Sergio Aragones, Jerry Ordway, Bernie Wrightson, funny that, Matt Haley, and Tom Simmons. All right. This is a humor comic about a character called Finster. And Finster is a stereotypical comic book nerd, and he has a very vivid imagination, and he loves comic books because he's like, I can be, imagine myself as a ninja or an astronaut or, a superhero. And in his mind, we see all these like little stories he's telling if he were a comic book character. But his real life, he's a little down on himself. He's like, oh look, there's that pretty girl, like, oh, but she probably wouldn't even want to like talk to me, like, he works at a comic book store, and he really likes to see his friends at the store, but his boss is a real jerk, and like, just the worst boss you could possibly have, and he's yelling at this guy. And Finster is comparing the comic book fans on New Comic Book Day to zombies, and they're like, oh, I gotta live for my comic books, I spend every cent I make on them. So it's very funny and tongue-in-cheek. I like to think that comic culture has evolved since then. I'm not a huge fan of the stereotype of the nerd who is, unwashed, unkempt, and really smelly. I'd like to think, we're just unwashed and unkempt. Like we've got the smelly part down. We now understand what deodorant is. Anyway, this is all supposed to be a joke. I wouldn't take it too seriously. So Finster gets sent to the back room because his boss is mad at him, and he's like, all right, well, at least I'll get some time to work on my comic. And he's feeling pretty bad and like, man, I wish I had better friends. I wish I could talk to women, or, hey man, I wish my boss wasn't such a jerk. And he's sitting there, and all of a sudden Superman shows up in a panel, and Superman's like, you could stand up to them. And Finster's like, well, yeah, you say that because you're Clark Kent. Like, I'm not you. I don't have powers. And then Clark does the Superman reveal where he pulls off his suit, and you see he's wearing the S symbol. And they go on an adventure and have to fight some bad guys. And Superman's given Finster some advice about you should just look deep into yourself, because you might not have magical superpowers, but you have a good imagination and a brain and a good heart. And Finster uses his comic book knowledge to become his own superhero and fight the bad guys and outsmart them by sending them to another dimension. And then Superman's like, see, you can do it. You did it. You saved the Earth. I haven't done that since earlier this morning. But then lunch is over, and Finster has to go back to work, and his boss is picking on him. And he's like, well, I had this cool time with Superman, but I guess this is just my life. And then a Superman comic falls out of a long box, and he picks it up, and you can see the gears working. And he's like, wait a second. Superman said I could stand up to them. I was a superhero, and he gets a plan to make some better decisions in his life. So the motorcycle gang that's been bothering him and trashing his shop, he comes up with a plan to get him to trash someone else's party. And the ladies from earlier in the comic, one of whom likes him, but he doesn't realize it, and the other one, like, he really likes her because she's super pretty, but she's not interested in him, right? They end up getting these hooligans at their party messing things up, which is pretty funny. One of them uses the stuffy girl's boyfriend to go body surfing. We get our classic phone booth scene of changing into a superhero outfit. And Finster's like, you know what? I'm going to go down to that party too. And the girls are all like, man, what are you doing here? And then he sees the hooligans trashing everything. He's like, guys, get out of here. Like, go bother somebody else. And the way he does it is pretty funny. And then the book ends, and Finster's, feeling pretty good about himself, but the one girl still rejects him, and he's like, oh, and just, pining after her. But maybe in issue 2, he's going to get to spark up a new friendship with another lady, the lovely brunette from the beginning of the comic, who is interested in him, and it's like, he's just so smart and funny and clever, and he's really imaginative, but oh, why does he got to be such a lunkhead? So this is a pretty funny humor comic. I think it is from 1999. There's a few things that probably wouldn't fly in today's market, but I am not upset by that. I didn't take this seriously at all. It's also a good reminder that the things that we dislike about ourselves, like, other people could like, and just be open to opportunities and seeing people for who they are. This was Like I said, done in 1999, so I appreciate that the back cover has a young Tony Hawk Got Milk poster. It's been a while since I've seen that, but they hung in our school cafeteria, and seeing ads for TNN, the TV network, which doesn't exist anymore, it was pretty cool. You know, I got this for $1.99, and I feel like I got $1.99's worth of value out of it. It was a pretty good humor comic with a decent story, and you know, we can all be our own Superman, and yeah, I enjoyed it. That is Fanboy from DC Comics, number 1 of 6. You can go out and find the others in your favorite comic book shop. Check it out.
Excellent. All right, let's jump over to Eric. I'm very excited about this one here because I've read this one as well. What you got first?
Well, I hate Fairyland number 4, and warning, the cover's a little risque.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we have censors, so YouTube, don't put the ban hammer on us. You find out there's a reason. It's not fan service, thank God. Basically, this one opens up. This is a filler comic, and you know, in all the Scotty Young I've ever read, I've never really seen much of a filler comic, but this one is a filler, and it is a great filler. I remember reading this. Starts out, you know, Gert, she's trying to get to Fairyland, and her assistants, Rotwald and Virgil, try to do an intervention on her. But the intervention is not because of her drinking too much, because, well, it's Gert. It's because she needs to bathe. And I remember I even had to send this picture to Anthony saying, okay, I just started reading it, but this is my favorite panel in the comic ever. You can kind of smell that photo where they try to emphasize, yeah, she's very unwashed, terrible hair, nose hairs, and ear hairs, all green, which all of a sudden now you see her hair color and you're like, oh God, is that why? But anyway, so she ends up getting told, you can go to this lake over here by the local bartenders. And there's a reason. And there's a reason they sent her there. Yes, I've never been so thankful for censor boxes like that. But anyway, it turns out that the people in that village sent her there because she was supposed to they're hoping for her to get sacrificed to a great big sea monster. I guess Anthony's gonna show. Yep. And I know that one's good, but what I love, I love Scotty Young's art. Like the next one, I'm sure Anthony will do this page too, but yeah, you get to see her go through this convoluted digestive tract, and it's just, and the more you look, the more you're like, oh God, what is that? Why is that happening? And, oh, you can just tell his art shows that Gert is obviously not having a good time. And she realizes she's stuck there, so she tries to survive. And I don't want to spoil it since it really recently just came out. But apparently, if you give Gert enough time, she can become very industrious. And she can make special dolls out of body organs. And once you've seen that, you're like, oh God. It's just like I said, this was just a filler story where she gets caught in a monster, and and she gets out because the story has to go on, but it's just the art in this, it's definitely, I have to say, Scotty Young is at his best.
I do have to add or do a correction, but because Brett Bean is the artist.
Oh, really? Okay.
Now, Scotty had done, if I'm not mistaken, the original run, which was like, 18, 19 issues or something like that. But since he's been, becoming a writer since then, and still drawing stuff, but he's really found a lot of people that have kind of worked with his style. So it's very easy to look at this and just, because they're all living in the same, they have a shared brain, basically.
Well, it's because, I see this cover, the cover says Scotty Young, because obviously Scotty drew that one.
So he'll do, he still does like the covers and stuff, but the actual interiors, at least for this issue, I just want to give a shout out to Brett Bean, and then longtime colorist partner is Jean-Francois Bellew.
Well, then,
But
yeah,
it was
definitely a
just one
shout
of
out to Brett Bean, because I didn't even know this wasn't Scotty. And
Yeah, that's how great he's definitely picked these artists and stuff that they keep with that same tone and style and I don't want to say mimic, but that is the closest I can think of them kind of following his style. So
well, I can definitely appreciate that, because a lot of times, you're like reading stories, they bring in guest artists. It's kind of hard to sometimes mentally. It's like, okay, this is somewhat different, but okay, well then definitely a shout out to Brett Bean for making a seamless integration here.
yeah,
Pretty
the
good.
Mike and Laura Allred will have a similar thing if they're doing like a long run on something, but they need a month for Mike to catch up. Then Joe Quinones comes in, and Darwin Cook has done the same thing where they're not the exact styles, but they still kind of play in that same realm, and it's not so alarming of a transition art wise, but yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, like I said, this is a really fun issue. This is an issue where I think, even if you're not a fan of I Hate Fairyland, even if you just pick up this one just for the story itself, it's not a
Yeah,
complex story, but it's a very fun one.
yeah, it gives you a good idea of what this series is as a whole, and this is just a nice little slice.
And I also
And it,
like that it seems we're going to have a new character. I
Mm.
remember in the first run Gert ended up having a fan club. This is probably going to be 10 times worse. Oh,
and if you like
just the
Gert's
picture.
stinky self, if you
Yeah.
like Gert's stinky self, you might like the story of Bonnier, the Aromatic. She's a girl that goes around in a zombie infested world, and as she sweats it up, her body odor takes over, and when she takes off her jacket, she can wipe out armies of zombies with her stench.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely going to need
Her
to
and
get
Gert
that.
teaming up.
Stench
Maybe
and
you could text me
smells.
the name of that one.
Stenches and smells have definitely been a theme here after talking about fanboy, that issue, and the stereotypes, and how we got this. So I might have a future title coming up here.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, well, because I think myself and Kirby just had one each, so we will cycle back to Katie again. What you got for us?
Okay, so I have a Marvel comic called A Moment of Silence. This is from 2002, and it's a memorial comic to the emergency service workers of September 11th. I do want to put a little content warning on this. This is a very solemn take on a real world event, and it is about real people, many of whom died. So, I know it's been 20 years since, and, we have different perspectives on what happened at 9/11, but when this was written, that pain was very fresh, and I think it can come through. So September 11th, 2001, I was in third grade. I was 5 days away from my 9th birthday. And that's the first historical event that I can remember, that I, am old enough to have had some perspective on. And I saw this and I wanted to pick it up. This, actually it's a piece of history. And to be honest, I don't know if modern Marvel would do something like this. It was just a moment of time. Now, at the time, the Marvel had offices in New York. A lot of their heroes are set in New York. For example, we have like Spider-Man and some versions of Iron Man and Captain America. So they're very close to the state of New York and New York City. So I'm sure all of us were actually alive for it, but if there's any listeners who were not, that's the frame of mindset to go into this comic. All the creators on this donated their time. So nobody was paid for this as far as I can tell, and proceeds went to the New York Police and Fire Widows and Orphans Fund. So we have several short stories in here. The first one's called The Moment of Truth, and it tells the story of a man named Tony Santos. Tony worked for the Port Authority, which owned the World Trade Center and the area around it. He worked there for 15 years as a maintenance man and a construction manager. He went to work on Tuesday, September 11th. It was a lovely sunny day, and he gets in, he's doing his job, making his phone calls, picking up his hard hat. He goes in the elevator, and suddenly the elevator stops and it goes dark. And he is trapped inside an elevator for about a half hour. And fortunately, the fire department is able to rescue him. And, they're encouraging him to evacuate because, at this point, like, people didn't really know what was going on, but they knew that something horrible was going on. And he says, no, like, I know this building. I'm going to stay and help you guys. And they keep pushing and be like, no, you need to go. You need to go. And he gives them the keys to go and unlock like the building, like the master keys. And he's walking down the stairwell with everyone else. And we see him interacting with other people. And he has a moment where he makes a decision that he doesn't think that he's going to be able to leave. And he calls his family. And we get the impression that basically he calls his family to say goodbye. The second tower's been hit. And George goes back in, or not George, excuse me. Tony goes back in and decides that he is going to help the fire department evacuate the building and guide them through as best as he can. And he did die, unfortunately, along with other firefighters. So on September 30th, they found his body alongside several firefighters in a collapsed stairwell in the ruins of the towers. So I cried reading this issue because I'm like, are these all real people? And I went and Googled, and they are all real people. You can go and find them on the 9/11 Memorial Project. There's another one later that I will mention that like just had me in tears. The next is a true short story as told to Brian Michael Bendis from a man named John Dudas, who works at a comic book store in Cleveland, Ohio at the time, but he's also a firefighter. And like many people, he was glued to the news that day, watching the news, listening to it on the radio, being like, what the hell is going on? Just we had never experienced something like this before. Like the last time we had been attacked was Pearl Harbor. And him and his firefighter buddies, after watching the news for 2 hours, decided they had to, like, they just were compelled to get in their truck and drive to New York, which is quite a drive from Ohio, to go and help out any way they can because everyone was overwhelmed. They're going to say it later on in this book, but many rescue workers died that day and in the aftermath, and then many more died later due to diseases that they caught from working at Ground Zero. So these firefighters go and, we see them moving rubble, and they're on a bucket brigade of people like handing rubble and stuff all the way out from the top of the wreckage. And the moments where the foreman orders everyone to be quiet because they think they hear noise and they want to check for, a survivor. And every time, they start to like get excited, but then lose hope because it's been so long. And at the end of the story, John says it was always a false alarm. They all were. He says, I had never heard a silence like that. And he says, look, we're not superheroes, right? Part of his caveat in telling this to Marvel comic is he's like, don't display us as like cape wearing superheroes. Like we are just people doing our job, and it's part of the brotherhood and family of emergency services. And he says, listen, all we could do was move a rock 10 feet, but that's okay. That's all we could do. And we just wanted to be able to say we did something. So that's, pretty moving from the perspective of someone on the ground. And the next story, I should say, all of these are told largely without words. These are all told through images, which makes it like just so much more chilling. The next story is about a family in the suburbs whose father works with the fire department, and he gets, he starts his day really, really early in the morning. So he gets called out. He says goodnight to his kids. And when the family wakes up, they see on the news that there's this tragedy going on in Manhattan, and they're very upset because they know their dad's a firefighter. And it gets worse. And, they haven't heard word from him at all. And, eventually the whole family is circling together, and we see that there's over 5,000 people presumed dead at that time. And everyone's just crying and angry and frustrated. And finally, they decide that they got to go into the town and see for themselves so that they can have closure. And they take the train. So this must be a few days past 9/11 because all the trains stopped. They take the train into town, get as close as they can to Lower Manhattan, and they see the wreck. And you see the one son, who looks like he's about like 10 years old here, just like start sobbing and screaming in like rage, and like just the whole family just like hugging each other. And it ends with a dedication to the memory of Michael Otten, his family, and the brave firefighters of Ladder Company 35. Now, Ladder Company 35 is significant because they were the station that had the most losses on September 11th. And in Googling this, I found a New York Post article about survivors of the firefighters who had died on 9/11. And it was about like 60 of them who had chosen to go into emergency services to honor their fathers. It was for the 20-year retrospective. And normally, you know, the New York Post is definitely like more gossipy, but this was very serious and treated respectfully. I cried throughout that whole thing. Oh my goodness. Like, it was just so powerful and so sad and yet so brave. You know, these children who are now grown up honoring their fathers, many of them working at the same stations, you know, carrying a picture of them on their helmets or getting their badge number tatted on their arm or wearing their medallions. And so many of them said, I feel like I'm with my dad. I feel like he's guiding me. I feel like this is what he would have wanted. He was so happy doing what he did. And I'm, you know, this is a way for me to feel close to him. Y'all, I will post that article, and I cried so hard. The next one is called Periphery. And oh, sorry, I'm getting choked up even now. So we see a family getting ready to start their day at work, you know, trying to get the teenagers up out of bed, and someone's taking too long in the bathroom, and the husband and wife are crabby at each other because like it's Tuesday, and like, you know, he's sitting in traffic, and you know, the kids are getting dropped off at school, and then they get the news that the towers have been hit, and they can see the towers on fire from their school, and they're so upset because they're like, oh my god, dad was supposed to be going into work today. He worked in those buildings. And the mom shoves all her children back in the car, and they drive home. They're glued to the news. Everyone's crying and so worried. And then all of a sudden the door opens and their dad steps in, and we see everybody start screaming and just hugging him because they thought he was dead, but because he was late in traffic, because he was, you know, taking too long in the shower and trying to get the kids out the door, he survived. So, I mean, that gives me chills because one, that did happen. And also two, like, how many butterfly effect moments are there in our life where something small prevents us from being a part of something that could have had such a huge effect on us? Like, do you ever have it happen where you're running late or you get stuck in traffic and then you drive past an accident and you're like, oh my God, if I had been like just 5 minutes earlier, if I had been on time, that would have been me, and I would be pancaked against the highway. It's like that, but like about times 100. So, oh man, it gets you. It gets you. And there's an opening from then Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who made national news for leading his city throughout that tragedy. I know he has, you know, since gone on to do other things to, you know, we'll say different levels of success, but at the time he was very much a national figure that was very important. We also have some prints that you could buy that are, if you bought them, they would go to the New York Police and Fire Orphans Fund. So we have one of Captain America saluting the flag. We have one of the Hulk with a little girl on his shoulder while there's airplanes doing a flyover. We have one of firefighters running into the burning buildings, one of a superhero holding up a firefighter, and they're doing, you know, like when you're like, yes, and you win, and like victory and like brotherhood, they're doing that where they're holding each other's hands up. And then we have a letter from Bill Gemus, who is the president and CEO. And he just explains why they wrote this comic the way they did, and, you know, what this means to them and what they hope people will take from it. Yeah. This is a heavy one, but I think this shows the power of what comics can do, and not just as a medium, but as a community. When we are at our very best, we are such a caring, loving group of people that is capable of understanding both huge, broad issues as well as bringing it down to the human level. And Marvel talks a lot about, you know, the street level heroes, you know, making the incredible normal. And I feel like they did the reverse of this. They took average, regular people who on one day changed their life, changed the world forever. They did something super incredible. And it's a testament to the human spirit, and it's a testament to comics. And I wish I had numbers of how much money this raised, because it would be really cool to say all the comics fans bought this memorial comic and gave so much money to the survivors. There's a lot of creatives on here, including Mark Bagley, Brian Michael Bendis, Bill Gemas, Igor Cordy, Scott Morse, Joe Quesada, John Romita Jr., Kevin Smith, Laura Allred, Avalon, Steve Bucoletto, Darwin Cook, Brett Evans, Gene Ha, Scott Hanna, Lou Harrison, Hi-Fi, Jason Havam, Joe Jusko, Raphael Kayanin, Sarah Oates, Shad Petoskey, Randy Queen, Norm Ratman, Alex Ross, and Chris Sotomayor. They all donated their time to create this memorial comic to the victims and survivors of September 11th, 2001, called A Moment of Silence from Marvel Comics. Check it out. It is a piece of American history that I think is worth reading. And that's my review.
For a very quick research, it looks like it raised over $1 million for the fund.
Whoa!
Yeah, that's the first result I got. I did look on Marvel Unlimited. Surprisingly, I don't think it's on Marvel Unlimited, but looking at some resources, whether it's mycomicshop.com or on eBay, it is relatively inexpensive to pick up yourself. So it's not one that's going to cost you, $100 to pick up or read or anything. So it looks like it is obtainable for anybody who is interested. So.
Yep, I got mine for $5. Shout out to the Grandma's Basement Comics in West Bend. It's an offshoot of All In Books. I picked it up in their back issue bins. $1 million, $1 million freaking dollars, y'all. That's the power of comics. We might be nerds, but y'all, when we come together, we can do amazing things, because $1 million is no small feat. And think about it, if everyone spent, probably $3 in 2001, 2002 money, how many people had to contribute? We have just such an amazing community, and that's something that we can be proud of, and we can continue that momentum going forward. Wow.
Yeah, I know Joe Quesada was one of the leading driving forces of that, with him being a New York guy and everything. So I know that's a very personal project, and very excellently reviewed. And this whole time I was trying to think, all right, I got to transition it off to Eric. I'll just say, I'm talking about New York superheroes. Let's chime in with this New York superhero. What you got, Eric?
Yeah, well, that's kind of a hard act to follow, because that was very emotional. Thank you, Katie. Well, I don't know if we can call him a New York superhero anymore. This is Daredevil number 8. A lot has been going on with Daredevil lately. Obviously, we've been doing the Punisher picks, club pick, and we had Daredevil visit Frank. Well, this takes place a little bit afterwards, and we find out that while Frank is currently doing his thing with the Hand, Daredevil has been working on building his own army, the Fist. He ended up going on to the Myrmidon, which is like a raft type facility where he gets a lot of augmented and superpowered individuals. He picks them up, he brings them back to, the Fist's headquarters, and starts working on training them for them to attack, Frank's Hand. And at the end of last issue, he found out that one of the people who he rehabilitated has been kidnapped by the Hand, and not only him, but that man's child. That was Bullet, I think was his name. And obviously Frank was not happy about the Hand, capturing a child, so he wanted to make sure that the child was fine. So yeah, Daredevil number 8, it's the assault on the Hand. I mean, it's not on their headquarters. It was basically where, hey, you want to come get me? Come get me here. And, it opens up, showing you the scale of the battle you're facing. Yes, that's Frank riding a dragon. This one doesn't have a minigun like he did when he was FrankenCastle, thank God. But in this one, you just get to see a great epic battle. There is a Hand operative that Elektra knows from her past. She ends up fighting with Stick. Just one thing I like about this book is the artwork in it. There's rain, fighting in the rain. That's an old trope. But, you see so many different different people fighting. You see Stilt Man comes in. He works to try to subdue the dragon. Stegron, who was brought from the Myrmidon, tries to enact his will on the dragon. Doesn't work the best. I saw that. But the battle goes. They end up getting Bullet's kid. They find Bullet. They bring him back, but they realize, during the fight, okay, we really can't keep this battle up. We are actually losing. And I think it's interesting the way this ends because, like I said, Daredevil, he broke a lot of people out of the Myrmidon. And even though he's trying to use it to keep Frank down, you find out that Iron Man, Captain America have been monitoring the situation since that happened. And much like that last episode of last issue of the Punisher, where Strange is like, what are we going to do about Frank Castle? Spider-Man finishes this one saying, Daredevil needs to be stopped. And one thing I like about this is it's kind of a mirror of what Frank is doing. He's trying to get rid of bad people, and he's using the hand as a means to an end. And in this one, Daredevil, he has, much like Frank, he's become the Fist. Daredevil has embraced a lot of new powers. I mean, now he can actually read books just by being in their presence because of it. And now he has actually brought, he's got his own army of criminals. He's made attacks. He's trying to, get rid of people in the world who are causing trouble. And now, because of that, he's put another target on his back. So now we see Captain America, who's also at the same time probably going to be going after Frank. Now he's going to be coming after Daredevil. So I don't know. I think from this, I just make the prediction that somewhere these two are going to clash again, and hopefully, I don't know if it can cross over with the end of the Punisher run. That would be great. But the way that this new Daredevil arc has been mirroring the Punisher so well is just, I don't know. It's because I like both characters, and then you see them becoming more like the other than they think. It's kind of like that Nietzsche quote: when a man fights monsters, he must see to it that he does not become a monster. I think Daredevil, he's become so blinded, much like the Punisher, that he doesn't realize that that's actually happening to him now. So it's a good storyline. So I don't know if you're a past Daredevil fan, it's not going to be like the street level that Daredevil has been in the past, because obviously he's leading a supernatural army now. So it's definitely a new direction for Daredevil. But I don't see a lot of people upset with Daredevil taking a new direction like they were with Frank taking a new direction. So I don't know. But yeah, either way, it's a good story with Daredevil. This one, though, you're going to need to read it from the beginning to understand. So.
All right. Well, I hope you're ready, because you do have one more. So you're up next. What you got?
This was another one that I had mentioned when we were looking at previews, called Northern Blood. Here we see a Nazi being killed by an undead Viking revenant. And I mean, Vikings killing Nazis. What more could you want? Let's see. Yeah, it's written by, I don't know his first name, just Jay Michalski. And the art is by Antonio J. Rojo. I'm hoping I have that name right. But yeah, it's simple black and white art, but it really doesn't need much color because you can tell what's what. Starts out, there's leftovers from an American platoon in a Norwegian forest during World War II. They're like the last survivors. They escaped. They end up finding their way into an underground crypt. And And I like how no matter what, whenever a person falls into an underground crypt, they're always able to pick up a torch that lights beautifully. And yeah, and then they come across a great treasure, but the Krauts are behind them. And luckily it seems that the Vikings don't seem to mind the Americans very much, but the Krauts, yeah, you can tell they really don't care. Sorry, reversed. They really don't care for the Vikings don't care for the Krauts much. They go in, full stop. Get to see some lovely Viking. Where is it? Sorry.
I really should have bought this comic because then I could have showed the panels for you.
Yeah, but just buries his whole hatchet right into the Nazi's head. So yeah, so from there, the leftovers are found out by the rest of the German army up in that area. The sole remaining American, he was not killed by the Vikings, obviously, because he didn't seem to have any ill will. Whereas, Nazis, I mean, if you're an evil detector, the Nazis probably bury the needle there. And then the last member of the American army is talking with people regarding a story where there was a guy an old Viking named Ivar, son of Stone, where he was tasked with like guarding his father's treasure, and he failed in it. But he made a deal with a witch that if he had the power to take over his reclaim his treasure, she would get his soul. So he ended up, made the bargain, got the deal, and it was like, and he was like, hey, I got my treasure back. And the witch is like, okay, time for your soul. Viking's like, I'm going to Valhalla, and he kills her. But then Ivar ended up getting her death curse. He's not allowed, he and none of his men are allowed to die to ever make it to Valhalla. So we see that this is why the Nazis are now facing this wonderful undead army with all the Viking weapons and armor. And I love it that they actually try to make it, more culturally accurate. You don't see many of them wearing horns except on the cover, but that was a different artist. You actually see them in the actual skull caps that the Vikings wore. No horns. They were like the typical Viking. They have the Viking weapons, the sword, the hatchets, spears. I like that. Every time I see somebody portray a Viking with horns, I just like, no. So my hatred for the Minnesota Vikings goes more than simply being a Packer fan, is that they refuse to update their helmets properly.
I hear you. Every time I watch basketball, I have the same thought. Yep. And so, yeah, go on.
Confused. Nope. Well, that's pretty much it. So, yeah, it's interesting. There's going to be more. We're going to see more Nazis get taken out by Vikings. I'm pretty much just expecting a major bloodbath, and it's one of those comics where that's probably what you're hoping for. So
I think Major Bloodbath should be a character in the next issue.
Those skeletons reminded me of the ones from Ash and the Evil Dead. They had all their little Viking hats on and stuff.
Cool.
Yeah. But this is good. More dead Nazis, the more I see, the better.
You're here. All right, that is going to do it for the weekly reviews, but we have a pretty awesome news segment coming up, so stick around for a couple seconds. All right, our YouTube audience is seeing the behind-the-scenes transition of saving the audio, which is kind of useless at this point because we're having trouble with our hosts, but they are looking into the account to try to get the audio version up on. I think Troy Dangara just had too many fans, and they just didn't want his word out there on Podomatic. The Podomatic servers just couldn't handle the cartoonist Troy Dangara, but thanks to YouTube, we still got that podcast out. All right, so we save. We're hitting record on the audio, and we are going to jump right back into it in 3, 2, 1. All right, in our new segment here, we have our long-awaited Milwaukee Mighty Con Winter Recap 2023. We've been gifted with at least 2 shows a year, so crossing the fingers, we'll get another show this coming fall. But we just had one in February here, the Milwaukee Mighty Con. If you are interested, they have shows in the area. You can go to mightyconshows.com, and looks like coming up beginning of March, so next weekend, they've got one up in down rather in Wheaton, Illinois, and then there's a Madison one coming not too long after in mid-March. So they've got a couple cool cons, and myself, Kirby, and Eric have all attended this one here. And if you want even more in-depth reviews and looks, you can check out Kirby's spinoff podcast, Under the Cowl of MS. He's been doing separate videos to spotlight the creators that he visited there at the con. So this is just kind of almost a little preview launching point into his podcast as well. All right, so we'll just kind of go around the horn here, just kind of share a story each round until our stories are done. First one I want to talk about is somebody who I was very excited to see again. I talked about her last fall. She goes by the artist name of Forged in Gold, as that's her account name, but it's Yasmin Guadalupe. And before I even got to say hi, she saw me and she remembered me immediately because I am now officially her first returning supporter. So I was her first sale at the Mighty Con last year. She saw me immediately, and there we go. So I'm her first official return supporter, and I wear that badge with pride. And I picked up this gorgeous new Scarlet Witch MCU inspired print that she did. So yeah, I was very excited. She was the one I talked about last time, where she did the awesome Grogu and Baby Groot hugging each other, and it was a genius move because she did a print of both angles of it, so depending on which character you were a fan of, but obviously we're a fan of both of them, so you have to buy both. So Forged in Gold, check that out on Instagram. I think is her main source. But yeah, so she's awesome. Check out Yasmin, Forged in Gold. All right, let's jump. Yes.
Sorry, I just want to say, yeah, my son still asks to see that picture of Groot and Baby Groot and Grogu hugging, because it is adorable.
So good, so good. All right, Kirby, first round of stories. What you got for us?
First one I want to talk about is FrankenSlaves. This one is, well, you can look it up at frankenslaves.com. But Matt Fitzgerald and Kevin Fitzgerald put these books together. And it's a fun twist on the Frankenstein horror storyline, but kind of it's like we want to get rid of slavery in the world. And they want to take dead characters and make them slaves now. Well, what if those slaves actually start to have recollection? They have thoughts from their body parts that are added to them. They have different people's arms, legs, whatever, to put them together to make them whole again. And all of a sudden they start having memories from those body parts after something happens to one of the slaves out in the field. And it's you get to see how he goes back looking for his past history and tries to find out what's going on. Well, at the same time, the characters that run the farms are hunting them down and trying to get him back and find out why he had these recollections and what awoke his mind and all that stuff. And at the same time, of course, other people get harmed along the way and stuff, but it's a fun, different twist. Well, not fun anymore. It's horror, but it gives it a whole new look at the Frankenstein lore, and it also gives you a history of all things Frankenstein. It goes back to the Frankenstein monster, Frankenstein the creator. It goes back to Mary Shelley Frankenstein, and we get all kinds of history from Frankenstein lore in the past, and it's just very well done, nice artwork, well laid out. But yeah, that was one I was really happy to pick up at the con, and hope they keep making those.
It's always cool to see with, Frankenstein being one of those, open domain characters, public domain characters rather. So like, it'd be awesome if Marvel did something where they took like Frankenstein and like the Punisher or something, Frank Castle, and mashed those together. I would love to see that. Eric, you're next. What's up?
I'm gonna hurt you one day. Anywho, so yeah, I went there. I had one main objective. It was to see Walter Jones, the original Black Power Ranger. And luckily, I was able to procure a comic for him to sign. But where'd it go? But yeah, getting there, this was the line all the way just there, just to see him. I think this is like the third Mighty Con I've been, and at every Mighty Con I've been, there was a Power Ranger of some sort. First one was Jason Font, who was the Red Time Force Ranger. I know he's still active in a lot of conventions, and plus he was with Jason David Frank to make the Legend of the White Dragon movie that's coming out. Other one was discussed last time. That was Christopher Kamen Lee, the Red Space Ranger, but this time they finally got one of the original ones. 52 years old. It's like, wow. So yeah, I probably waited over a good hour in that line. But watching it, you see he spent a lot of time with fans. I mean, there was somebody who brought their kid dressed up in like a little old Black Ranger onesie or thing, and you see him get around. He's like, hey, playing with them. But yeah. And I also had a coworker who suddenly was like, okay, if it's around 30, I'll take an autograph. And then I went to 50. Okay, 60, fine, 70. If it's 70, I'll take an autograph. And while talking to her, yeah, I show her the pictures. Yeah, see, here he is. She's like, oh my God, I don't care. Just get an autograph from him. So I ended up doing that for her. I ended up getting up to see him, and I noticed, and I found out that right when we did this photo, Anthony walked right by. He always had this thing, you take the photo, he said, 1, 2, 3, it's morphin' time. And I managed to get that. Probably see it better on the Instagram. But yeah, then I walked away and I'm like, hey, you got to witness that. Sorry, Anthony. But anyway, so yeah, got to meet him. Excellent, really fun guy. Took time with his fans. A lot of them have a lot of the Rangers I met have always done that. And I also got him to autograph Power Rangers comic with his character on. That's not really a very good likeness. And I mentioned that. I'm like, yeah, well, the artists take creative license. So he didn't sign it over him, but he signed it over a picture of the Black Ranger in the outfit, which is a little more accurate, I suppose. But yeah, so I got this little piece of memorabilia now for it. And so far, that's like the third Ranger I've met. So I'm pretty sure if this is the trend, next Mighty Con, there's probably going to be another.
Now, if they have Walker Texas Ranger, would that count too, or is that a whole different thing?
Well, it depends. Norris or Padalecki?
Half of half. It's a two-face scenario.
Oh God. Well, I don't know. Maybe I don't think you could book Norris. Maybe Padalecki, but even then.
Okay.
But no, that won't count.
Yeah, and the weird thing, when I walked up there and you were literally at the table, so I got to see that whole interaction, and then you charged me $75 just to witness it. So well, money well spent though.
Of course.
All right, next one I'm gonna highlight here. So I go through all the tables and see what catches my eye, looking for art, and I come across a table that mostly has illustrations of cars. Now, I myself am not much of a car guy. I really don't know much. I'm beyond a Tim Burton Batmobile here, and that's where my list ends. And so I'm just flipping through and just being like, oh, this is cool, but it's not really. And then all of a sudden my eye line goes over to some other car interpretations, because there is some geek related stuff thrown in there. So it was all kind of like classic car type of deals. But then I saw this piece that is referred to as a cosplay contest. it is an awesome piece with Wanda and Vision, and you got some Black Bolt and Medusa, you got some Green Lantern, you got some Batman. I got to look at here. You got some Storm, you got some Emma Frost, and some vehicle with wheels in the middle. But yeah, it's got an awesome, like, once I saw this and I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm really into it, because it was very creative with kind of bringing in some of the, the artist got to draw the cars that he likes, and then kind of throwing in some superhero influence. I have another thing to show up, but before I do that, his name is William Dutkowitz, DutkieWicz. He's got a Facebook symbol on there, but otherwise, yeah, William Dutkowitz. But yeah, artist, cartoonist, and it says ask about commissions and all that stuff. And I actually did talk to him for quite some time, because I suggested that it would be awesome if he drew the Jalopy from Archie Comics and put Betty and Archie outside of Pops, because he's really good with the exteriors and the building and the time period and everything. So we did talk for quite some time. I got his information here, so I may get that. Depending if we can agree on something. But here's another one I picked up, a nice little beach scene that it's got this once again a vehicle that has wheels, and there's some surfboards, and oh hey, look, to me there's another surfboard, because the Silver Surfer is also part of this. This was just awesome, and he almost just kind of like got lost into the, he's knocked down one of the palm trees there, so I almost just like missed it completely, didn't even notice him at first. He kind of blends in with the water and the skyline there, and all of a sudden I'm like, holy crap, I need that too. So yeah, I went from a booth that I was about to take a hike from, just because I'm like, I'm not really into cars, and then I found two things that were very awesome. So yeah, that was cool. And maybe sometime this year I can return with a Archie Betty Jalopy commission. We'll see what happens.
Now, I also have to ask, Silver Surfer's board, does it have a fin on the bottom normally?
There is. I don't know if it's something that maybe some artists do or don't, but typically it's some, they've got I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, I can show off some examples. But yeah, sometimes I would imagine it's something that probably an artist takes to their own discretion on whether or not they want to do it. But yeah, I think some of my action figures have it too, actually. So cool.
I noticed.
All right, let's jump over to Kirby. Next round.
The next booth I hit was Ghoul Scouts. They got volume 1 and volume 2, and if you get them at the con, you get the Ghoul Scouts merit badges for each book. Got the zombie one for the zombie book. This was Night of the Unliving Undead, where these little group of kids are part of the scout program, and they hook up together once there's zombies all over the town, and they work together, find some weapons, and decide to take care of the characters themselves. And you learn some history about some past kids from that are now adults that used to have their own little group that they used to deal with the monsters, because this town is Ghoulsville or something like that, or can't remember the exact name of it right now, but it's based off all kinds of horror type action that's happening around the town. And volume 2 is I Was a Teenage Werewolf, and you get the werewolf merit badge with that one. And in this one, you got some characters that are able to shapeshift, and the kids decide, well, what the heck, we dealt with the zombies, let's go hunt the werewolf down next. And the ones that survived from the first book go and try and figure out what's up with this whole werewolf story. And while we're in this one, it's kind of interesting because we find out two characters from the first book that we'd never seen in the first book that dealt with the zombie apocalypse themselves also are in this book, and they have a nice little story about them that takes you back to the first book and gives you the whole layout of what they dealt with during that apocalypse and then what they're doing in this one. But yeah, it works fun. Great family friendly, all ages books. I would think they'd be great for bedtime stories or whatever. But yeah, Ghoul Scouts, check them out.
Yeah, and the guy that was selling that there, I picked up a Darkwing Duck sketch card that he had in the binder there. So yeah, I have yet to read that book, the Ghoul Scouts, but I did buy volume 1. So
Yeah, you'd have to look on one of my videos, but Shelly got a Nosferatu sketch card from him.
and then to give an update, at least on the Mike and Laura Allred Silver Surfer, there is a fin at the end of the board there. So
I do not remember seeing that bit.
and because once he said it, I'm just like, yeah, I mean, it sounds familiar. And I'm flipping through. I just saw it on the first page I looked at. Yep, it's on several here, but it might be something that maybe just an artist interpretation and where they're just like, yeah, I'm drawing it with a fin. But with the All Reds and Dan Slott being my favorite run of the comics, maybe this is the only version that has it, but I'm curious. I'm going to have to flip through a couple of the old ones and see if that's a continuing thing or not. But
I think the majority of the images too are coming from the top down on the board, so you're not seeing it. That's why I didn't ever think there was, and I have those.
Okay, let's see here. Eric, another round of stories at all? You get something off?
Well, normally when I go, I like to get cosplay pictures. I didn't get many this time because on my way down, I got called. There was emergency at home, stuff overflowing that shouldn't be overflowing. So I'm like, oh, great. I got to just get out of here and get in. But I did manage to get some good cosplays this time. First one I ran into, I saw it and it was just beautiful. I mean, you don't see much of it. Mystery Science Theater 3000 person had the perfect Tom Servo replica.
Awesome.
Also came across a wonderful couple cosplay. There is nothing like Geeks in Love. Got to see Thor with Jane Foster. They both had the respective weapons, and you probably can't see it, but yes, that is actually a cracked Thor's hammer. Also saw a pretty good Wasp cosplay. I'm trying to think where the others. And this one, a lot of people, I didn't insult him by saying he was the Mandalorian, but yeah, this guy actually made his own original Mandalorian outfit.
Wonder if that's Mike Allred in cosplay, because he's made his own too. Mike Allred secretly came to Milwaukee and didn't tell me.
I don't know, you ran into him a lot. So another really fun one I saw. You don't see much of it. Powdered Toast Man and Art the Clown from Terrifier. Another one I really liked. This guy, he did like the Alec Molina Doc Ock, and he actually made tentacles himself. I had to look at it. I'm like, okay, so that's conduit cable, wire, foam, holy Lord. But yeah, you can tell this guy, I mean, they didn't move. I know, lazy, right? But you can tell with the amount of detail and work that this guy put in. I'll send you these photos for the page. Also ran into an Imperial General, like flawless cosplay right there. It's like perfect. So
I was looking for my photo of Powdered Toast Man, so here's another shot at it. So
and then another really good one that I saw, and I was like, whoa, it was insane. There was a Nazgul and an elfish princess with a sword. When you look on the page, you'll probably be able to see it better, but I saw these and I'm like, oh.
Now, were you there for the cosplay contest?
No, I was dressed as the Punisher. With this time I decided to wear a trench coat instead of like all the other stuff. But
because on Mighty Con's website, they posted a bunch of pictures of the cosplay contest people, and most of the ones you showed I didn't see in there, which is surprising because those are really well done.
Yeah, a lot of them are really nice.
And they had quite a few that I did not see walking around the con that were in the contest that I was very surprised to see. But there was one lady dressed in white in an Asian garb outfit with white face and everything, and she just looked awesome. And she just I constantly kept seeing her wandering around. She's in the Mighty Con pictures, I know.
But yeah, I've never really wanted to try the cosplay contest. Eventually, I'm considering maybe looking at making my own costume for something. Problem with the Punisher, yeah, it's easy to do, but that's also what makes it not too impressive, because all you need is like spray paint and a flak jacket. You can buy flak jackets anywhere these days. So, but
Right.
yeah, so that's all, because I didn't have much time to stay down there, sadly. But
That's
there was
right. You
still
got your
time.
awesome highlight with the Power Rangers. I'm sure that was obviously worth the trip.
Well, for me anyway.
And then you got to see me too, and that was cool.
Yeah. Let's not rub some salt into the wound there, Tony.
Hey, here's another one. Let's see here. All right, let's talk about Jeffrey Moy. Jeffrey Moy, who mostly advertised his Patreon. So we have patreon.com/artboymoy. That's MOY. And I was flipping through his stuff here. Got this awesome poison ivy. Picked up a cool poison ivy. I was going to buy a Scarlet Witch until I saw it was on a postcard here. So then because I was looking at what else I was going to buy, I'm like, oh, he's got it on a postcard. I'll get a poison ivy. I was going to pick one or the other. So then I got that. But I also got, this is what attracted me to the booth, because I'm like, yep, this is an item that nobody else is going to have at the Milwaukee Mighty Con. We have a Lara Croft Tomb Raider with Grogu on her back. So I love myself a good mashup there, and I thought that was an awesome combo, and just design wise, it just works perfectly. So yeah, that is cool. That is Jeffrey Moy, Artboy Moy, MOY. That's all one word to find him on Instagram, but also his card and everything for Patreon. So patreon.com/artboymoy. All right, Kirby.
The other person beside the Power Ranger, that was the main thing at the con, that Fox 6 News came to see him and talk with the con runner. Didn't stick around for the Power Ranger or for the show to start, which I was surprised. But we have Jeff Belkey Studios, and he finally had some more prints of his second comic, the John Carpenter's Presents Storm Kids, Stanley in the Forgotten Forest. There's a fun story about a forest that just happens to, you forget about things. So the characters go in there and you see what they run into that forest, and what they can't remember that they ran into once they come out of the forest, and all the things that happen during it. And it's just another fun little all ages fun story that you can read to your kids. And of course, he had a bunch of his other stuff there. So I had to pick up some things, like he's a colorist. He colors pages and stuff. And then he did a throwback at the con this year. So if you can catch him at any Mighty Cons, which he'll be at the Madison one, he'll be at the Illinois one. He's going back to his first year where he did coloring at the con for $5. You just bring a black and white comic in there and he'll color the cover. He just highlights certain parts of the cover, doesn't color the whole thing, or you just bring a page in or something like that and he'll highlight it for you. But they had a pile of these in there that he did, which I was really happy about. We got a Spawn one, and we got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle one, and one of Harley Quinn, which I was really happy about because he had a Harley Quinn comic I wanted to get, which sadly he didn't have. And my favorite one of those was Deadpool. It's got like Disneyland sign in there, and so it's like Deadpool just trashed Disneyland. And if you know Jeff Belkey at all, he worked for Disney. That's where he started out as a colorist and stuff. So, and then his main things that he colors and puts on his site, you got dancing skeletons, you got our little buddy Fang. This is the Stanley's wife and some of the other characters all done up in horror. As you got Freddy, Mike Myers, Chucky, and Carrie. And I got, oh Christ, I forgot his name already. The little chipmunk dude. There's the other background that he did for the dancing skeletons. We got both versions. And Stanley's wife done up as Vampirella. Had to grab that one. Then Stanley and the characters did a Ghostbusters parody on there, which is awesome. And yeah. So yeah, we bought a bunch more art from Jeff, but Jeff Belke Studios, check it out, Balke.
Yeah, he's got a big booth representation that just goes all, you know, it's got one of those giant end caps and stuff, so he's got a lot to offer.
Yep.
All right, somebody that myself and Kirby talked to, I had a long conversation with Linnell Dickerson of Mercules Studio. I saw this awesome, once again, a mashup. We've got Baby Groot running off with a potted plant, but it is the piranha plant from the Nintendo Super Mario Brothers world. And so he had a print of that, and that was super cool. And one of the awesome things that Linnell offered too was that he was sitting there working with Procreate on his drawing tablet, and he had a TV monitor in front of him, and it was all hooked up to watch a commission that he was working on, actually for his friend and I think a studio mate. He's kind of has a team that he's been working with, and we talked a lot, and he was just talking about, you know, all of his all the art he's been doing and all the help with the friends, and you know, them coming up with this awesome, basically this whole presentation and this art gimmick, and you know, the Mercules Studio, and they all had like, you know, t-shirts and the QR codes, and like there was definitely a great branding going on with just like everyone just kind of, you know, wearing uniforms in the sense of they all had the t-shirts on and everything. So but yeah, we had a good discussion there. Kirby came around the corner, and that's when the topic about the comic club and Under the Cowl of MS and all that stuff happened. So instantly hooked up with him on Instagram there. But yeah, this was an awesome piece, and then once again I told him, like, yep, this is something that nobody else is going to have, maybe except for Ert Boy Moy. Maybe he was going to do this mashup, but other than that, nobody else was doing Baby Groot and Piranha Plant. So this makes it two Mighty Cons in a row that I've bought something very you know, a mashup with Baby Groot and another property. So yeah, I'm going for the trifecta next time. So, and yes, Kirby picked up that one as well. But yeah. So yeah, that was once again for the advertisement. Mercules Studio. His name is Linnell Dickerson. There we go. Kirby.
I got to run into Tyree Pope the third again, which I met at Cowabunga Con back in, I want to say around Halloween of 2021. But I finally got Fair Fight Volume 2 from him, and he has an awesome animated short. Well, it was a short for the first one that goes with this, but I think they have it full length now. But he's having problems with his website at the moment. But he also had The Adventures of Human, which kind of takes you into the Fair Fight storyline. So it's a nice little crossover. And of course, if you have bought something from him, you got yourself some artwork to choose from. So I picked the Street Fighter style fighting page. He had a cool Back to the Future style page also. But yeah, it was awesome running into him again. So got caught up with everything I needed to with that. And he's making more comics for a couple of the ones that I really enjoyed in the past. So I'm looking forward to seeing those come out too. So it's Fair Fight Comics.
Cool. I walked past the booth of Nick Catsby, who is from Rubber Punk Productions, but Productions has a duck in the middle there, so nice play on words there. But yeah, Nick Catsby, and I saw a print hanging up that I instantly laughed at, and I'm like, all right, that's worth my money. I'll take that because it was hilarious. We have Brains. We have Mario zombified there, and looks like, oh yeah, that card looks familiar. I think it's sitting up here too. Yep, Nicholas Catsby, Rubber Punk Productions. A lot of fun there, a lot of cool stuff. I think there was some pins I bought too. There's a lot of different cool things at their booth, but this one here, just the drains, was just awesome. I always try to, like, even though I'll get some repeat pieces here and there when it comes to characters, especially with this one, if I find a baby Groots or poison ivies or something like that. But a lot of times when I jump in, I always like looking for something, being like, well, here's a property I love, but I don't have like a kind of a interesting piece of art for. And I'm like, other than a link from Eric Wolfgang, I didn't have anything in the Nintendo world that I can think of off the top of my head. So I'm like, yep, I need to add that. So drains. All right.
Yeah, I had a big stack of business cards. I know next time I got to write a note on every damn business card before I leave the booth, because most of them I couldn't remember who they were, but they're artists that were offering commissions. And I'm like, well, I'd like to get the commission down the road because the money I have today is for the con. And so I took their cards, and then I couldn't remember who they were, and I had to look them up online. And some of them had some of their stuff, some didn't. So it's still trying to figure some out, but this is helping. So next one, I see this giant booth, this big thing with Burrito Supreme on it. And I'm like, well, that looks fun. I'm going to have to pick that one up. And they had a $25 package deal, I think it was, to get a little variety of things. I didn't look what he was grabbing. I just figured it was going to be a comic, a poster, maybe a sticker, and I'd get home and I'd check it out. But this one's a fun story because it's kind of a take on the characters, kind of like Green Lantern, Silver Surfer, Starman, Luchadors, Batman, all kinds of characters like that crossed into one. And he's basically Chet Chimichanga, and he finds this, he's dumpster diving one day and finds this device, this item, this thing that he puts on himself. And once he does, he realizes he's got some special powers, and he turns into Burrito Supreme. And it's just another great family-friendly story that you could read to anybody of any age, probably. But in the pack, it came with the Burrito Supreme trading card, a villain trading card, which the villain is Dr. DeFrost on that one. A couple of Burrito Supreme stickers. Then you had a big Burrito Supreme crossover. That's Chet Chimichanga turning into Burrito Supreme there. You got Burrito Supreme with his little guidance buddy that's helping him along the way, trying to teach him about his powers and stuff. And then they had this cool Batman 66 style action word balloon poster, him beating up a giant cheese stick character. But yeah, that was really fun, food related, family friendly, goofy style comic if you're into those.
Cool. We have Nolan Tweedy art. That's Tweedy with a D. I was on that Poison Ivy kick for the Mighty Con Milwaukee, so I picked up this awesome print of Poison Ivy. I was very tempted by the original piece, which was also there, but it's very easy to go off the deep end and just start buying everything you see right away. But so I started off with this one here, but this one was gorgeous. A lot of great different work there. Nolan Tweedy art on Instagram, ntweedybird_art, and once again Tweedy is with a D. But yeah, that was awesome stuff there, and rounded off my Poison Ivy purchases. Nolan Tweedy art.
Okay, that explains that card.
I'm glad I'm filling in blanks for you.
I don't know who this was, but he had a ton of big posters, and I picked up a variety of them. And he had the regular style posters and also metal ones. The regular ones were, I don't know, I can't remember. It was like 20 a piece or something, and the metal ones were 60. So I'm like, yeah, I'll stick with the regular ones for now. But they had a package deal if you bought a few. So we bought, I think, 6 of them. But he had the samurai mask, which I love, with the swords. And wife had to grab this one. We got a sloth drinking coffee.
Excellent.
And then, of course, we had to get the cat ones. Our little samurai cat. And here's the other. I forget what you call it, the wishing cat or whatever. And the last one was Nightmare Before Christmas sketch. Them atop the monument with zero at their feet. But yeah, he had some beautiful artwork. I would have liked to have got a few more, but I grabbed those ones. And like I said, you can get regular or metal versions, but I don't have his information, sadly. It's one of my business cards, I'm sure.
All right. The last one I am highlighting here is an account that is referred to as Scaly the Dino Designs. If you just search Scaly the Dino on Instagram, there was a lot of fun, just singular character cartoony pieces, and it's a great play on words when a lot of the characters. But here's one that was near and dear to my heart, as we have a Marty McFly here, Back to the Future fly. It's a lot of kind of like a Baxter Stockman influence in a way, but it's Marty McFly. So that was an awesome little mashup there, and followed them right away on Instagram and just seeing all the different drawings. A lot of good stuff there. That is Scaly the Dino Designs. And if you are eventually listening to this on iTunes, if we get all our audio account stuff in order, checking out the YouTube version as we're doing a little show and tell, as well as checking out the Crimson Cowl, all one word, on Instagram. And I'll do my best to highlight some of that stuff and get them tagged and everything like that. But just an FYI as we're kind of showing some of this stuff. All right, Kirby, that was the end of my pile to highlight. Anything else to...
I got the last few things I'll show off that I have near me is Anthony might know who did this because he sent me to the booth. And if you follow me at all, you know, there's a certain werewolf from Wisconsin that might be the spawn of Svengoolie. So he sent me to this booth, and luckily I got there because it was the last one he had. I had this nice little Svengoolie minion crossover sketch, choking the chicken.
No, it's possible with the name on the bottom. Is that the ghouls guy, the Ghoul Scouts guy?
Dag? Yeah. Dag would be. Okay, that was from the Ghoul Scouts. So yep,
that was the second table
Yep.
I visited. So.
Dagman, yeah, I should have known that. And then Susie's Stitchables and stuff. They had some cross stitch work, and wife got a few bats and stuff like that. But these are the two I got. I got a little Mario mushroom with a Ghostbusters logo on the head, and they had a Mario grow up and get a life mushrooms. I love that. I couldn't pass that up. And then the last thing, because I wanted to show these off, because there's lots of other things than just comics and art at these shows, but there was a booth that had this for $10, and I've been collecting lunch boxes again. They had a Mankind lunchbox for $10, and I couldn't pass it up. It's the Pops one, but didn't have the pop in it, but the lady opened it up and showed me that there was something in there. I didn't know there was a few things. I thought it was just the one thing, but there's a Mankind pin, smiley face pin.
Have a nice day.
There's a lanyard with a man thing character stuck to it, and all kinds of fancy man thing stuff on it. And they had, which was the main thing I wanted from the whole thing, was Mr. Suckle.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
$10, I pay $15 for an empty tin out of the catalogs, and I got all that extra in there for $10. That was worth it.
Well, you know, if you're a wrestling fan, in Grafton, there's a wrestling event where X-Pac is making an appearance.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I was bummed because we were gonna go to Fond du Lac last what was it, March, April, and DDP and Razor Ramon were supposed to be there, and that's just before the incident where we lost.
wow.
Yeah, it just that was a bummer. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's so that got canceled. But yeah, they've been having them so close by lately, and St. Cloud, Fond du Lac, and some big old name people showing up at them. So
Well, yeah, good thing is that this is was the independent wrestling, which is some of the best. Sometimes most of the entertainment just comes from watching the audience.
yep.
It's
Years and years ago in West Bend, there was, I think there was Badger State Pro Wrestling, which I think turned into Powerhouse Professional Wrestling, and they would do it at the old skate country. And so they hosted a couple of wrestling events. I would have been in high school at this point. And my cousin, who was a manager at skate country at the time, um, since they would be very successful shows, they would start to put them into the storylines and just kind of do some fun stuff with like the managers and the DJs and stuff like that. Long story short, she did train to become one of their wrestlers. So she did have a couple matches, and I was part of her entourage. And I came out, and I was like basically sign guy, but I was in the backstage area, and I would come around, and I was just at the ringside and stuff, but it was in that same, indie, circuit pro wrestling stuff where it's just, it's super fun, and it's just, it's real personal and everything. And, it was very, 80s throwback with just kind of like the gimmicks and just, yeah.
And it amazes me how they even can afford to do it, because a lot of these are in high school gymnasiums. You don't have that big of a crowd. And it's like, how do you make the money to have these bigger name people coming in and stuff, plus pay the regulars and the crew? And it's like,
There was one guy that was in Badger State and Powerhouse that I think he was Bubba the Love Train. I think that was his gimmick. And I was shopping for new DVDs on Tuesday one time at Walmart, and I saw him shopping too. It was awesome.
they become
Oh,
brother in the future.
yeah. But yeah, that stuff's always real fun and good.
And if you love old school wrestling, you want to watch something fun, I believe it's on Hulu that I've been watching it. But WWE's Treasures, the first episode is Mankind, second episode is Undertaker and Kane. They take them to find certain items from their past matches that have been lost that they want to bring back to the WWE for their museum. And it's fun watching what they come up with and what they do.
I haven't heard of that. Yeah, cool. All right. Well, that is going to do it for the news segment as well as this show. So, once again, if you want to check out for more information on MightyCon and future shows, go to mightyconshows.com. If you are in our Illinois, Wisconsin, Midwest area, a lot of fun since they're all kind of, these smaller local Comic Cons with, one or two celebrity guests, but a lot of it's populated with local artists and, vendors and everything. It's always, it's a good old fashioned comic book con. So yeah, check out those. And then once again, check out Under the Cowl of MS, the YouTube page for some extended videos and reviews of the things that were highlighted, as well as checking out the Crimson Cowl on Instagram, all one word. So I will gradually start getting some of the pictures and stuff and tagging the people and making the connections. And I'm just going to give up on my charger that's not cooperating with the wall right now. Okay, so that is going to do it then. Let's go through some plugs to wrap up the show. Last week we had Troy Dungara on tunesbytroy.com. That is tunes with a Z. Tunesbytroy.com to check out what he has to offer, as well as his extremely well performing YouTube video through the Crimson Cowl Comic Club on YouTube. That video is getting a lot of views, a lot of good shares, and friends and family of his and some of the people we've talked about too liking the videos and watching it. So that video turned out pretty good, and hope to get some more feedback from that. Then we have Happy Astronaut. Go to happyastronautcomic.gumroad.com. And Matt Fife was on a show a month or so ago, but also We'll have him back when we see that Happy Astronaut is going to be in the upcoming previews catalog starting in summer. Just as summer is about to kick off, Happy Astronaut is expected. It has been picked up by a publisher, and that is exciting news. And I'm sure it all stemmed from this here appearance on the Crimson Cowl Comic Club. So you are welcome, Matt and Matt. CrimsonCowl.com. We also had another guest on last week's show, someone named David Gloyd, not only the co-owner of Crimson Cowl Media and co-founder of this here podcast and all that fun stuff, but also him and his son and his family are all working on a bunch of fun projects. Check out crimsoncowl.com. Right now you can see Tales from the North, which is a free ongoing anthology series that's created by David Gloyd II. It is a dark fantasy comic based on the setting of his RPG campaigns. Chapters 1 and 2 are available now, as well as a winter holiday special. Listen to last week's episode to find out some more updates for Crimson Cowl Media and what is to come from that talented group of individuals. Crimson Cowl Comic Club at yahoo.com. If you have any questions or concerns, or maybe future letters page questions where you can submit them and we'll answer your questions and have fun with it. Crimson Cowl Comic Club.com, or nope, Crimson Cowl Comic Club at yahoo.com. All right, then we also have the YouTube page, Crimson Cowl Comic Club on YouTube. And stay tuned. You want to subscribe to that because next week at the time of this recording, we do plan to hopefully meet up and record our first Hellboy special as we dip into the original Hellboy comics and do YouTube only little spotlight videos for that. So make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. And because we're having trouble with the audio, so that's a great way to get your podcast until me and Potomatic fight each other in a squared circle and get this thing settled. The Crimson Cowl, all one word on Instagram, which I talked about. Crimson Cowl Comic Club on iTunes. I was going to say Yahoo Tunes. Subscribe to us on Yahoo Tunes. Why not? Crimson Cowl Comic Club on iTunes. Like and subscribe and rate and review, all of that fun stuff. Kirby has a spin-off podcast, Under the Cowl of MS. Anything you want to advertise for what came out this past week or what's coming up for Under the Cowl of MS?
I just finished off the last of the MightyCon videos, and I've been putting out an episode a day for the past week, on the audio. So we're keeping busy with it, getting through some comics, getting through some old comics, 80s, 70s, 90s, variety of things, and then finished up the MightyCon. So who knows what's going to come next week? I'll think of something, I'm sure, when I wake up in the morning.
Excellent. All right. And then the last little plug here, I have a hobby artist account over on Facebook and Instagram. Anthony Latch is my name. That's LAATSCH. So if you want to see some of the hobby art I've been putting out there for fun, check those accounts out. That is going to do it for this episode. It was an excellent show. This is the time where I go through and just kind of act like I'm, know what I'm saying, and I'm definitely not killing time to go to my notes file to see what I wrote down at the beginning of the week because I forgot to transfer it to my computer note file. And once again, nobody was catching on to that. This whole time, I've had a date with a hot bath and a frozen dinner.
I've been sharing a burrito supreme with Frankencastle.
I've been distracted by the fact that in 1998, Undertaker threw Mankind off the top of Hell in the Cell and plummeted 16 feet through an announcer's table.
I've been getting pretty upset with all the FrankenCastle references.
To be continued.
Thank you, Slimer.